This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. If you could please as well, just give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It'd be very helpful, very appreciated. Allow us to see what you guys like, what you dislike, ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we are there as well. So you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And it seems as if Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell have had a lot to discuss during this Rona time. Obviously, as has been well documented, Rudy Gobert was the first person, I guess Rudy Gobert technically first, but then Donovan Mitchell not that long after, where they were the first two players in the NBA to test positive for that Rona. And subsequently, that led to the league being shut down, and then that led to other leagues being shut down, and now we have no more sports. Not anybody's, depending on who you ask, not anybody's fault, per se, but they were the two main people that got the ball rolling, at least in terms of in our country. Obviously, it was in other parts of the world before this, but once sports were canceled, that's really when I believe that it allowed us as Americans to begin to see this as a threat. Obviously, more people taking it. Some people are taking it more seriously than others, I should say. Even to this day, where we've been over a month now without any live sports to watch. But yet, and still, I know a lot of people that didn't take it seriously before all the sports were shut down. Then obviously, once sports started getting shut down, then we have no choice but to take it seriously. Because obviously, if they're shutting sports leagues down, they don't do that unless they have to, and clearly they had to in this case. But it came out, I believe this was like Friday, Saturday, sometime around there. It came out that through The Athletic that the Mitchell and Gobert relationship did not appear salvageable. And then that mainly stemmed from, obviously, like I said, Gobert being the NBA's patient zero, if you will, with the news of his COVID-19 test immediately leading to the league to shut everything down. Mitchell tested positive the following day, and there were reports of frustration coming out of the Jazz locker room about Gobert being careless leading up to his diagnosis. Obviously, there was the video that kind of went viral of him getting up from like a press conference, or not necessarily a press conference, but just getting up from talking with the media, and he touched every mic. And apparently, I guess that wasn't the only time he had acted in that manner, and obviously the Jazz players did not appreciate that because it could have gotten them all sick, as it did with Mitchell. So that was an issue. The Jazz reportedly tried to take steps to educate their players, but Gobert did little to show that he took them seriously, with the infamous video being like the most visible showing of that. While it is not known whether Gobert transmitted the virus to Mitchell or vice versa, or if they both got it from some other fashion, a point the Jazz have tried to reinforce to Mitchell, The Athletic reported the damage may be done already. The day after he tested positive, Gobert issued an apology, and I know Mitchell was on Good Morning America on March 16th and said, "It took a while for me to cool off. I read what Gobert said and I heard what he said, and I'm glad he's doing okay. I'm glad I'm doing well. I'm just happy, to be honest. It's just, I hate to say it's just two of us, but it wasn't the whole party." And also, I think in his Instagram post a while back, which I may have touched on, I don't remember quite exactly, but I know he there's a part in there about people needing to educate themselves and learn as much as they can about the disease, which many people took as a shot or a subliminal hint towards Gobert, just because obviously if this is true, then he could have used some of that education in terms of making sure that he didn't endanger himself or any of the other players around him with reckless behavior. And then, so here we are. So then that came out, but then apparently Rudy Gobert is saying everything's fine. He talked with ESPN, I believe, earlier, and he downplayed the apparent friction that him and Mitchell have, saying that they recently spoke for the first time since Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus, and Mitchell, who as we've already discussed, was upset with his careless behavior, and Gobert has said that it is true that we did not speak for a while after this, but we spoke a few days ago in a video posted to Instagram Live on Sunday. We're both ready to go out there and try to win a championship for this team. On Sunday, Gobert said the Jazz's pair of all-stars remain on the same page. It's not about being a professional. Gobert said, everyone has got different relationships. It's never perfect. People that are married, it's never perfect. So, me and my teammates is far from perfect, but at the end of the day, we both want the same thing, and it's winning. We're both grown men, and we both are going to do what it takes to win a title. So it's just interesting to see two sides of this, and also just to hear this coming out at all, that there is, in fact, damage to their relationship, if that is to be true. Now, obviously, I don't think Gobert would go out there speaking knowing he's going to be asked about this without saying that they hadn't spoke, because even if they have or haven't, you don't want to be out there like, we haven't spoke, just to further those rumors. But at the same time, if I'm Mitchell, I completely understand why he would be feeling this way. Obviously, again, there's no way to know who transmitted the disease to whom. And if, let's say, Mitchell got it first and passed it to Gobert, Gobert got it first, passed it to Mitchell, if they both got it from an outside source, no one will ever know that. And that's the unfortunate part of this. But if inside the locker room people believe that you are reckless with their health, there's only so many apologies and sorries you can do in order to mend that relationship. Because obviously we don't know what kind of relationship they had before then. Now, it wasn't a bad one, but we don't know exactly what their relationship was before then. And if it was only like a working relationship, this obviously hurts that, because this, in theory, happened at work. So that kind of ruins whatever relationship you have. And the NBA and other sports are much like any other job out there that you or I or someone else may have, in that, generally speaking, a bad job can be made better by good coworkers, just like a good job can be made worse by bad coworkers. So if you like the people you're around, all right, even if things aren't going great or things could be better, the people that you're working with every day in and day out make it more enjoyable. It's like if you have people that you come to work with and you detest and you can't stand being around, that's obviously going to ruin your experience. So if there's any level of this sort of friction within the Jazz organization, obviously there's not too much you can do about it now because they're not playing games, so it doesn't matter. But if they ever do come back this year, they're probably going to come back this year at some point. Just whether or not it's for this season or next season is a different question. But if they do come back, like to restart this season, and you can see any sort of communication issues or any sort of friction on the court, then I feel like it's at this point you might have to part ways with the two of them. Now, I'm not saying that they necessarily will trade them. They'll probably find a way to work it out, but at a certain point, you're past things working out, and now you're just actively holding back the team if you have two people on the team that don't like each other. It's the part of the reason why, even though it didn't make any sense from a basketball standpoint, why, like, you think back to a couple years ago with the Wolves where they had Jimmy Butler, and then it was clear that Jimmy Butler hated Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, and they had no choice but to trade him, even though it was the beginning of the season, even though it didn't really make a whole lot of sense from them basketball-wise, because they were, a top 3 or 4 seed in the West the year before he got hurt. He gets hurt, they drop down, and he comes back. They're able to get back into the 8 seed, play in a playoff series. Obviously, they lost, but they at least able to play in one. And like I said, from a basketball standpoint, you could argue he was their best player, maybe cast their most talented player, but he was the driving force for that team, both on the court and then obviously from a leadership standpoint, having some of that experience and playing with guys like D. Wade and Rondo and many of the other guys he played with, and Joakim Noah, Gibson, Taj Gibson, and some other guys he played with in Chicago, D. Rose for a little bit too. He had that experience, but at the end of the day, they couldn't coexist, and you had to get rid of them. Even though, like I said, on the basketball court, it made no sense. So that'd be interesting to see how that dynamic works or that relationship works. Because if I feel like you could have been a threat to me, like, I mean, on the court, like, if you're like a threat to me, like we play the same position or whatever, like that competition, they don't have to always like each other. That's understandable. But if you're talking about like threatening like my health, the health of my family, the health of other players, that just kind of reckless, unnecessary behavior is going to be hard for something to get over, especially since he caught it. Now, if Gobert caught it by himself and the Jazz players were mad about it, all right, cool, but at least nobody caught it, they probably get over it. But because Mitchell actually caught the virus, though, again, as I've said before, we don't know exactly who gave it to whom, so it's hard to blame Gobert wholly on this. But if at least he was being reckless, then perception is reality, unfortunately, for Gobert. And if people believe that, then both players on the team and players around the league are going to be mad at him, whether or not his actions are really what caused this or not. It's just that visual and that idea is out there. And like I said, it's hard to really come back from that. So that was interesting, because I know you'd heard rumblings, but this is like the first time you heard anything like sort of concrete. And I mean, obviously it's as concrete as, anonymous sources, so it's only so concrete. And then obviously Gobert pushed back against some of that on Sunday. But again, what else was he going to say? Like, yeah, no, he hates me. Like, that was never going to happen. And I guess we'll have to see what Mitchell says. Because if Mitchell comes out and says something, or he's like, yeah, no, we haven't spoken, or yeah, no, we have spoken, but I'm still not over it. Like, it just, like, we're kind of waiting game with things like this, where you're kind of just like waiting to see, like, all right, how does he respond? Because if the response would be the most telling thing as to how the relationship is working towards being okay again. Because like I said, these are two very important pieces of their team, and if they're not working in cohesion together, it's going to be a problem. Obviously you can coexist on the court without liking each other, but if there's any sort of issues there, then it's going to be hard for the Jazz to do anything, whether it's this year, next year, in the future, whatever. And I mean, like I said, if Gobert did in fact pass the disease along to Mitchell, I can understand him being mad for a while. Especially if it's like, if it happens, it happens. Like, obviously, most, as we know with this, or we've been learning with this disease, most people that have it don't even know they have don't have any symptoms, so they don't even know. So in that case, it's just hard to be mad at somebody. But if a person was actively doing things that would be against guidelines or regulations of what we now deem unsafe to, I don't know if I worded that right, but just like if we're doing things that if the CDC came out and they had a list of rules and it goes against all those rules on how to make sure everybody's staying safe, if that's what Gobert was doing, like, I understand the people being mad. Even if he got through it, he's healthy now. Also, just at the same time, it could have been worse. And just the fact that was a possibility could be enough to, like, fracture relationship. Everybody's different. If not everybody holds grudges the same or gets mad at things the same. Like, not everybody reacts. That's how I wanted to word it. Not everybody acts with everything the same way. And you can't be mad at somebody for their reaction to what you do, necessarily. So if you were being reckless and now the person isn't cool with you anymore, and that's reasonable. I know people on Twitter that said that they've seen people like not really practicing social distancing, going out or hanging out with large groups of people, not wearing masks, not wearing gloves when they go out, stuff like that. And there's people that'd be like, yeah, no, I can't be around you once this is done, because I know you don't value your own life or the lives of those around you. Some people really think like that, I can see why. So I'm saying if Donovan Mitchell's one of those people and he's like, nah, I can't do it, then I can be mad at him. If he's willing to reconcile, then I'm not mad at him either. But it's interesting to see how that's going to work out, because obviously that could be a big storyline if and whenever the NBA starts back up. But speaking of that, since we don't really have a timetable for that, there are many people around the league that are hoping to get the NBA draft pushed back, mainly like people working with the teams, hoping to get the NBA draft pushed back. And so we'll talk about that, see if I think it'll actually happen, even if they don't play any more games for this past season. Like if they just focus completely on next season, if I think that'll happen. Also, like, what do we mean logistically for the following season and even for this season, stuff like that. So we'll discuss all of those things right after this break. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the NBA teams, much like the NFL teams did, and failed in doing so, but they tried, want the NBA to push the draft back, considering they are... I was going to say considering, but we'll get to that in a second. This is from ESPN. I believe this came out on Friday. As information gathering on draft-eligible prospects remains limited during the coronavirus pandemic, many NBA teams are united in hopes of encouraging the league office to push the date back of the draft from June 25th to no sooner than August 1st, sources told ESPN. Multiple top team executives expressed to ESPN their belief that shifting the draft date would give organizations more time to salvage the essential elements of the pre-draft process, possibly allowing for in-person workouts, interviews, and medical evaluations of prospects that current social distancing and shelter-in-place guidelines make impossible. For now, the NBA remains on Commissioner Adam Silver's timeline of May 1st is the earliest that decisions on the remaining league calendar will start to be made. An August 1st date would be flexible based on whether the league restarts in advance of the regular season and playoffs through the summer. In that case, most envision a September draft and free agency period based on the season that concludes around Labor Day weekend. Among front office executives, there is an expectation that no draft would occur while teams are still engaged in the season, because that would preclude an important element of draft night, player trades. That's why team officials believe the draft and free agency should stay connected on the calendar once the season ends. Also lastly, in a memo obtained by ESPN on Monday, the NBA informed teams that organizations are prohibited from conducting in-person interviews or workouts with draft-eligible players until further notice. They can conduct virtual interviews, much like the NFL teams have had to do, but are limited to 4 hours total for a single player. The memo said. This is interesting, though. Teams are also prohibited from requesting video of recent workouts the player may have conducted outside of a team environment, the memo said. Teams can only study film, such as college games or practice sessions that occurred before the NBA suspension of play. So, I was going to be against pushing the date back, but now that I see that, no. Alright, I can see why the NBA teams are like this. So at least with the NFL draft, obviously there's no in-person visits, there's no workouts, in-person interviews, stuff like that. but you can still you can FaceTime with the team, with the players. They were obviously able to meet with some of the players before the whole coronavirus thing started up, at least in terms of the sheltering in place and social distancing and all that stuff. And also, players are holding their own personal workouts or holding their own personal approaches and stuff, so you can still see that film out there, and NFL teams can request that or get access to it, what have you. So that's not an issue for them. Now, if this is true and the NBA holds fast on this, which just seems kind of odd, that they wouldn't be allowed to view any private workouts they've done and only be able to look at game film, then yeah, no, okay, I get it. Why they'd want to push it back. And also, I mean, again, you want to push this back because, like I kind of said with the NBA, with the NFL draft, if you don't push it back, then you're on pace to start as normal next year or next season. But if you do push it back, then obviously that alters the timeline, though. I guess from the NFL standpoint, there's no OTAs, there's no mini camp, stuff like that. So maybe it wouldn't have altered the timeline that much. But luckily, it didn't get pushed back, so we don't have to worry about that. But from an NBA standpoint, if they push it back, then it could alter the timeline, especially if they're trying to come back and play. I think Brian Warner was talking about they're trying to figure out a plan for if they were able to start back up, how it would work, how you get the teams together, how you would what kind of practice time would they have before they have to or what kind of training camp would they have before they have to start playing the games and stuff, how many games they would play, all that fun stuff. But yeah, so they're trying to figure that out now. But in the meantime, I guess this is a question, and it's a fair question to ask just because it's coming up shortly. A little under 2 months. But it's coming up and you need to know how much you need to dedicate to watching this film and going through these things with each of these draft-eligible players. And in fact, the draft is going to be in June. Now, if it's in August, you have more time for that. But also, my only thing is that if you push the draft back, then you're basically deciding that, all right, that means either two things. A, we're going to try to play the season at some point during the summer, and then obviously, if we do play, then that you can continue to move the draft back. That's not an issue. Because once you move it back, you can keep moving it back until you want to do it. It's not really a big deal. Or two, we're kind of, I guess in kind of this, which is kind of a continuation of one, is two, that we're fine with having our season start in December. Because if you have a draft in August, September, you can't just come around and have the season start in October. That doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from the player's standpoint. So if you have a draft early, then you are basically saying that you're willing to have the season start in December, which, as we've discussed on this podcast, I think makes a whole lot of sense, just because, again, it would lead them into the summertime when there's really just baseball and then we don't have to compete with anything too much. Especially since it'll be early season baseball, no one really, unless you're a die-hard fan, which I know obviously there are a lot of people out there, depending on the market you're in. But unless you're one of those, the NBA would kind of have enough free reign in order to be able to capture whatever empty market share there is for things to watch on television. Because I know, obviously, during this time I've been inside of that, so I've been watching a lot of TV, and most of the TV I've been watching has been Netflix related, just because you don't realize how much sports programming there is that you normally consume if you're a sports fan, which I assume most of you listening are. You don't realize how much sports games and things you consume regularly. Just again, obviously it's always available, so you don't really think about it. But when it's not available, then you realize what am I normally watching during this time? I'm normally watching a basketball game, or I'm normally watching a baseball game, or I would have normally watched the NCAA tournament or whatever. You realize that a majority of my time that I'm not doing other things, I'm spending watching sports. Then when there's no sports on, you try to find other shows to watch, but very few shows. I don't want to say very few shows. So there's shows back now, or that are on now currently, that people are watching, though. A lot of them are also on Netflix, so there is that. So you can consume them at your own pace. But when you realize that if you don't watch a lot of shows on just regular television, or not, a lot of people are cutting their cables, cutting their cords. They don't have cable or anything to watch, network shows. So I'm just like, all right, if you're not watching sports, like, what are you watching? And you realize just how much of sports make up your regular viewership during this downtime. So that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, from the NBA executive and team standpoints, I do get it though, because much like I said, much like with the NFL, you want to be able to be as successful as possible. And if what's in that memo or what's in this article I got off ESPN is true, the way the memo's set up, then they're not really setting these executives up for as much success as they normally would have. Like if they can only watch film, which I mean should be good enough at least to get a gauge of a guy, but it's not the be all. It's not the be all and end all. You still want to be able to talk to the guy, which then they can do. Which only have 4 total hours, which isn't. It's enough time to get a gauge on how a person is, but still, in the grand scheme of things, not that much time. You also can't do in-person workouts. You can't watch any of their workouts, stuff like that. So that could be a little. That's a little off-putting to me because at least, like I said, with the NFL, they had the Combine, they had the Senior Bowl, they had the East-West Shrine Game. They were able to at least get a couple meetings in before the Rona shut everything down. So they had the opportunity to meet with these guys beforehand. Obviously, they're not able to do like the in-person visits or the in-person interviews, which I mean, again, face-to-face is good enough. It's not the best because obviously when a person's in front of you, you can see how they respond to different things. You can see their body language, see the way they walk into a room, see the way they carry themselves, all the things that you won't be able to see on a FaceTime or like a regular phone call. So I get that part, but in terms of like all the different things that you've gathered, basically all you don't have is just private workouts, which, I mean, if private workouts really, really are that important to sway that much of decisions, then I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because obviously in the private workouts, that's not football. You're just going through drills and stuff, which, again, can show different things that you may be looking at, but it can't show you everything. And then obviously, I guess the other big thing is just like the medicals, so like the physicals and stuff like that. Though, these guys can get physicals from doctors located in wherever they're at. It's just not the official team doctor, so not everybody may want to listen to it. But again, it's not like they can't get physicals or can't get medical checks or what have you. Like, you can still find a doctor to do it. It might not be your doctor, but it's still a doctor. So you can have whatever. You can have the doctor send over some photos and say what he sees, and have your team doctor look them over and get the same thing out. So you can't really feel the stuff, but you can at least see it, so that can give you a decent gauge. But I don't know. It's weird. But like I said, if they decide they're going to push us back, then they're just saying one or two things. Either A, we're going to try to play the season, and that's why pushing us back, or B, we're content with not having the season start until December. Which, both options make a whole lot of sense. I don't know which one's more realistic or more feasible, but I would, as I've already discussed, I would not be opposed to the NBA starting in December, and then obviously running through June. Or I guess or maybe it's even longer than June, because it already runs into June now. So even longer than June. I guess through almost like July or August. Excuse me for getting that mixed up. But yeah, so then running through July and August, all the dog days of summer, if you will, when there's literally just baseball on TV. So yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. So I would be cool if that's what they decided, or that's what they were kind of setting the groundwork for by pushing the draft back and thus pushing the timeline of the NBA calendar back. But again, you gotta see if they're gonna make a change that big, because a lot of people don't like change. So we'll have to see. But at least it seems like the executives at least want the draft pushed back. And I know we talked about teams wanting the season start later in the year, so they're at least starting to think about the change. So it wouldn't be like brand new to them if it were to happen. But again, as with everything that has come from COVID-19, we're going to just in a wait and see game, wait and see what they decide to do, because we'll know soon enough what their plan is and what kind of comes from all of this. But yeah, so after this neck race, we're going to come back and talk about a league that recently had to fold, obviously, because of the Rona, and why people seem to be taking enjoyment in that, and why I don't think they should be, because I think the league could be very helpful in the future. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people dancing on the grave of this league, and I'm just like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. Not yet, at least. Not yet. But yeah, we'll talk about that right after this break, so stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the XFL. As you know, just like every other sports league around the world, had to shut down. But because of that, so because of it having to shut down and obviously cancel the rest of its season and everybody's getting laid off, which is very unfortunate, though not uncommon. During the time, especially if you work in the world of sports, without really any live sports going on, teams or companies or networks or whatever you want to call them are trimming people, laying people off just because obviously you don't need as much stuff to get done with no live sports to worry about for the time being. And the XFL was no different. It was unfortunate because I enjoyed the first 5 weeks, more or less. But yeah, there were many people, both like just regular Twitter users or some media personalities or whoever, that were kind of, I don't know if celebrating is not the right word, but were not exactly disappointed that the XFL had to get shut down. Let's just put it that way. And obviously, it's not like the AAF where they had to shut down because they ran out of money or anything like that. They literally had to shut down because of a pandemic, which, everything would have shut down. It didn't matter. You could have had any new sports league come in, they were going to get shut down because of that. So it's unfortunate for them because it wasn't really any fault of their own that they got shut down. It seemed like they had the facilities, the funds, the TV contracts, everything to at least survive through one season. Whether or not I was going to make it 2, 3, or whatever is a different story. But it seemed like they were at least going to be able to make it through a season. And now we don't really know what's next for. And I don't think there's any plans for anything to bring it back next season just because, again, they lost out on a good amount of money. They were set to make. However, now there's really no way to get that back. So that's unfortunate. But, and as I mentioned, a lot of people seem to be didn't exactly seem to be disappointed that the XFL had to shut down. I'm just curious as to why. My point being that, was the XFL perfect? Of course it wasn't. We know that. It wasn't exactly the caliber of NFL football, though. We've seen a decent number of guys get signed from the XFL to NFL teams. And then we'll see whenever football starts back up, hopefully by August. Maybe a training camp September. We really don't know. I'm just hoping, as long as the season doesn't get canceled, I really don't care when it starts. But yeah, so we know that there have been players signed from the XFL to the NFL, so we at least know NFL teams were paying attention to it because they're not just going to sign guys blindly. That wouldn't make any sense. So they were at least paying attention to it. They were good games, good players. Obviously, PJ Walker was arguably, or probably not arguably, but reasonably the best player, MVP, if you will. Cam Phillips, the receiver on Houston, was also very good. I don't know if he's been. I feel like I don't know if he's been signed anywhere. I feel like I would have seen his name come up if he was signed anywhere. But like I said, a few other people have signed, and that was really all the league could hope for. This first season, obviously, you would have hoped for it to play the whole season. People will enjoy it. People talk about it. And have, like I said, everything runs smoothly, no real big hiccups or whatever. Then obviously from there, hope that NFL teams come back, look at these guys, sign them, and then they go on to have success. Because at the end of the day, this league isn't going to overtake the NFL. It's not going to replace the NFL. So what kind do you want to build it as? And I feel like this is a kind of sort of tester league in terms of like ideas, changes to the game, players seem like a reasonable thing to me. Or I see a reasonable expectation for the league, at least in the beginning stages. Maybe it grows into something bigger from there. But at least in the beginning, that's all you can really hope for, is that hope that people like the rule changes, like the style of play, like the broadcast, and then obviously the NFL teams like the players, and those players are able to stick. Because at the end of the day, I don't think anybody came into this hoping to be an XFL star, though, I mean, maybe they did back in the day, but no one coming up now is like, hey, I really want to be in the XFL. They all want to make it to the NFL, so you can't expect people to be willing to stay loyal to this league when they have no real ties to it. But yeah, and I think this one former employee of the XFL, I'm trying to find their Twitter account, Andrew D. Sampson on Twitter. I don't know exactly what his role was, but he used to work for the Tampa Bay Vipers. Like I said, I don't know exactly what his role was, but he was with the XFL and unfortunately got laid off. I guess he was some part of the content team. Which, I mean, as a whole, the XFL's content, social media team or social media teams, I should say, were pretty good. I think I saw their TikTok team got almost up to like 400,000 followers by the end of the season, which is obviously for a league that literally started at nothing is very good. That's not very. That's definitely not that common to get that kind of growth that fast. I know their team on Twitter had almost 400,000 followers. So again, they had some traction and at least some sort of fan base. Obviously, again, not compared to the NFL. But yeah, so this guy kind of put it, I guess let's head back to Andrew Sampson. He kind of put it and made a good point about why people were happy to see it fail, quote unquote, because again, it didn't fail to shut down due to a pandemic. That's a completely different scenario than the AAF was. But so yeah, I guess people are kind of happy to see it just because it seems like, I mean, you could argue two main sports leagues, because again, when I've seen like there are too many sports things, though. You could argue ESPN now doesn't have anything to show. They were showing like a 1997 spelling bee on Sunday during the day, just because that's kind of where we're at this point in terms of content. You can only replay old games so much, and there's nothing new to pump out. So you stuck to old spelling bees. Not exactly what you would expect from a sports network. But I mean, it's on ESPN, so I get it. But just like a 1997 one, like I don't know how many people were clamoring for that per se. I mean, obviously I've seen like cornhole championships and other things that people do and find entertaining. But as he kind of pointed out in his little like notes thing, was that the NFL is more than just a sports league. It's an American institution. Symbols like the G or for the Green Bay Packers or the Dallas Cowboys star are so deeply rooted in our culture that it's like Betsy Ross sewed them herself. We feel beholden to them, but we shouldn't feel more beholden to any American institution. We shouldn't feel beholden to another free American institution. I should say the free market system. Nobody owns the concept of football when we chuck a pigskin through a backyard. Tires when we don't have to send a royalty check to the family of Walter Camp, aka the guy who invented football. And football is a product we can all own. Essentially, it's an open source program for sports nerds. And obviously, again, he knows he's a little bit biased towards the XFL. But they kind of get his point is that like it seems like with football comes like it's just like NFL, college football. Nothing else can work. Obviously, with basketball, they have a G League, which no one is really that mad about, which is like literally just the feeder league for the NBA. And with baseball, they have minor leagues which no one is mad about them having. They're not like, no, we can't have any other professional leagues. We got to just have the MLB. Like, no one would say that. I know there's the MLS, but I don't know if there's a secondary league under that. But like all over Europe, all over Asia, there's like tiers of leagues, whether it's soccer or basketball, or whatever. There's not just like one league and then like that's it. There's no other leagues in that country. I don't think. For the most part, obviously there's the main leagues, but I think there's still small leagues under that. But like since we're the only country that really plays football outside of Canada, we just feel as if any other league that plays football is in competition in the NFL, and we can't have it, which is a weird concept because in theory, if you like something, you want more of it. Like it's just like people liked ESPN, so they made ESPN 2, they made ESPN News, they made ESPN U, they made all the other different variations, so you could have more of it. It was like, I mean, just like we have. I watched HGTV, not just during quarantine, but just in general. They have like shows like House Hunters where people go look for houses, and they have House Hunters International. Then they have these other different types of shows. They have Property Brothers. They have Love It or List It. They have different variations of like home fixer upper type of stuff. I think a show's on there. It's called Fixer Upper. What's the other one with like the divorce couple? I don't remember what it's called, but they buy like rundown houses and they fix them up. I don't remember. I know that there's another one. It was like something Hidden Potential or whatever. It was like a new one where it just like it's like this area of I think it was like California or whatever, but they like or this neighborhood or whatever. She like goes in and like fix up the house and tries to find things within the house to use or around. Regardless, my point is that when people like stuff, they just make variations of it, and then everyone's okay with it because they like it, so they don't get mad about it. I mean, obviously, you go to Food Network, they have Chopped. Then you go to Chopped Junior, you got Chopped 20-Minute Champions, where they got like guys 100,000 shows, or we got everything Bobby Flay's on. Like, no one's really that mad about having all these different type of shows. It just seems like when it comes to football, we only want football from the NFL, and any other league, we're just like, no, we hope it doesn't work out. When it shouldn't be that way. This should allow us to see, and because again, no other league is ever going to take over the NFL. That's what we need to understand. And I think we all kind of do understand is that no league is ever going to overtake the NFL. So because of that, we can use this other league for the people that don't make it to the NFL, because not everybody makes it to the NFL, or it sticks on an NFL roster. But also, there's some things that the NFL is just not going to be willing to try because people are just too stubborn to change. I mean, now you talk about you say how people are so. I mean, this hasn't been come recently, but people were up in arms whenever you bring up the fact of the NL having the DH, as if the AL has always had a DH for the entire history of baseball. Like, no, it didn't. They brought it on, people liked it, and they kept it. But I'm like, why would you? If there's something we like and could be useful, why not just do it? But it's like, oh no, history, blah blah blah, and I'm just like. People, as the game evolved, things changed. They weren't 3-point shots before. In college, they banned dunking because Kareem was too good at it, or he was too tall or whatever. And then it's like, all right, well, now we're going to unban dunking because that doesn't make any sense. Or we're going to add a 3-point line. And it was like, well, that's too easy. We're going to move it back. Or like they adjust the pitcher's mound. Like there's things that you do within the leagues to help change them up, and that's what the NFL could do. And some of those things that they could do could have were tried in the XFL. So I'm saying if there's another sports league, it allows you to see what works, see what doesn't work, and see how you can adjust. It breeds improvement. It's like, I don't know how many of you guys play video games, but it's the way people feel about like the Maddens and the 2Ks and stuff, where there's not any other competition, so they just put out a very similar game, newer graphics, adding a few things here or there, and then just like at the end of the day, the game is what it is, but you're gonna buy it because it's the only game on the market. That's what people want. Like NBA Live, people wanted NBA Live to come back. People want 2K to start making football games just so that it gives you a reason to stay on top of your game. Because I know people have suggested the NFL product slipped a little bit the last couple of years. But if that is true, and you believe that, then seeing a league be successful, that'll get you to be on top of your game. So I'm just saying, I don't understand why we don't like competition all of a sudden. Because, I mean, we're watching sports for the competition, and now when it comes to our sports leagues, we're just like, no, we just want the NFL. Which, again, I never thought the XFL was going to be a huge thing, but I thought it could at least be, it was at least cool, it could be successful, but I know a lot of people were, and again, I'm not going to say it wasn't everybody, but there are people out there that were not surprised and were kind of like, yep, no, figured spring football, it's never going to work. And I'm just like, it could have worked, but there was a pandemic, so, like, did you expect them not to cancel the league? Like, what were they, like kind of the XFL's hands were kind of tied, and this one, like, they had no other choice. It's not like they had a choice and just folded up like the AAF literally just folded up. The XFL just was forced to shut down and obviously going to lose too much money to be able to sustain it. In my opinion, completely different scenarios. But hey, not everybody sees it the same way, but I just thought it was unnecessary to me for them to, like I said, to people to kind of dance on the grave of the XFL, especially when it's so new and fresh. And a lot of people lost their jobs because of this pandemic, not just in the XFL, but around the world and around the country. People have lost their jobs due to this, so it's not necessarily, you shouldn't be happy that things are folding up. That's not really, seems like a good thing to do during this time, but I know people were. And it's just unfortunate. I mean, eventually, I think a spring football league will stick at some point. I don't know when it will be, just because it could be like that feeder league, since the NFL doesn't really have one. I mean, college football is, but like a feeder league that pays people. Because like I said, G League you get paid, minor league you get paid, even though it's not as much and it's not as lucrative. There's still something there for you. In college, it's literally just you go to college and you go to the NFL. Like that's it. There's no other option. If you want to play football, at least. I guess you could go to Canada or whatever. But if you want to stay in the country, there's no other options. Either you play in the NFL or you find another job. So there's a market out there for an extra league. Just like how it's going to work and if people will be willing to accept it. And I'm not sure if people will be willing to accept it, though. I mean, hey, people come around to a lot of things eventually, so we'll see if that's the same way here. But yeah, so after this break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a person who seems to have their next career set up for whenever they decide to hang it up on the football field, speaking of football. But it's not who you may have thought it would be. I don't know. Maybe some people saw us coming. I know I wasn't that surprised, but I was a little bit like, oh, okay, that's interesting when I saw this news. So we'll break down who that was and where they're going, and I guess how they could affect things around other networks and their pursuit of on-air talent after this next break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, none other than one Drew Brees appears to have found his calling for once he decides to hang it up, which will probably be after the season, but I guess he has time to make his decision on his own. But yeah, it'll probably be after the season. But Drew Brees is apparently signing. This is officially reported, I believe, but this article is from the New York Post, but you can find this in a bunch of different places. Drew Brees is signing with NBC Sports over ESPN in a move that will make him a fixture on NFL telecasts after he finishes playing, the Post has learned. In a contract that will begin after Brees retires from the Saints, whenever that may be, the 41-year-old will be groomed as a potential replacement for Chris Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football, which is interesting because I didn't know they were trying to replace Chris Collinsworth. And also, I mean, I guess if Al Michaels' deal is up soon as well, so then they could just bring in a whole fresh new cast. Obviously, I know Al Michaels is a little bit older, and Collinsworth's doing all the PFF stuff, so maybe he must focus more on that side of things. I don't know. I mean, it's not bad that as a color guy on Sunday Night Football. So, hey, I hope this is not how Chris Collinsworth found out that he was being replaced, but that would be interesting. Like all NFL fans, we look forward to watching Drew continue his Hall of Fame career this fall, and we are confident his post-playing career will be just as successful. NBC spokesman Greg Hughes told the Post. NBC already has a succession plan for Collinsworth's Saturday Night Football partner Al Michaels after the 2022 Super Bowl. So that's in 2 seasons? Yeah, 2 seasons. Mike Tirico is going to take over full-time for Michaels. And Drees retires from the Saints, which could very well be after the season, but who knows. He's expected to start as a game analyst on Notre Dame football and as a studio analyst for Football Night in America. In its recruitment of Brees, I wonder why Notre Dame. That's interesting. Did Purdue play Notre Dame a lot back in the day? Maybe, I don't know. That's interesting. But I know NBC obviously holds all Notre Dame games, but I didn't think they would have him start in college first, and I didn't think they'd have him cross over like that, just have him do college and the NFL. But I guess he's capable of it. In its recruitment of Brees, NBC sold him on it being the best place to succeed. Or maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The move by NBC has been made in part to solidify its announcing group as all the networks head into negotiations with the NFL for the next TV rights agreement. NBC could possibly add a second NFL package, which would allow Brees and Collinsworth to both be their number ones. Interesting. All right, so that would be key if they're not. I mean, obviously, Brees can eventually replace Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football, but have them both on, obviously, that gives NBC more leverage. Now they can get an extra game, and not just have the Sunday night game. Not a bad thing for them, money wise. If not, Brees will be in the on deck circle. This offseason, Brees signed a 2-year, $50 million contract with the Saints, though there is a feeling this could be his final season, while ESPN was thought to be the highest bidder for Brees in the $6 million range. ABC's offer said to be competitive with that, though we don't obviously know the details just quite yet. And also, I guess that's kind of important. In the end, ESPN declined a financial offer from Brees that could have landed him on Monday Night Football. According to sources, ESPN felt it was too steep of a price and would rather go forward with a more immediate plan, because obviously they have to wait a little bit in order to get to him. As we already discussed, they had interest in him, they had interest in Romo, they had interest in Peyton Manning, all to be turned down. So they also tried to trade for Al Michaels, which again wasn't going to happen. So yeah. Oh, also, wow, I did not know Chris Collinsworth got his son a job with NBC. Shout out nepotism, potentially. Though I don't know this guy. Maybe this isn't all nepotism, but hey. Yeah, sometimes it's who you know / are related to than what you know in the world. Not just in sports, but in the world in general. That's kind of how things go. Network or not work, as they like to say. But yeah, so apparently he's going to do some Football Night in America, take over from Liam Q as the other extra guy that kind of goes on the field sometimes as some auxiliary analysis. But yeah, so Drew Brees could be the new face of NBC football, or it's Sunday Night Football, however you want to word it, very soon. Obviously not this year because he's still playing, but maybe as soon as next season, which would be interesting. That's because he seems like a smart guy. Seems like an articulate guy. Don't know exactly how good he will be behind the mic in this capacity, which is obviously why they're going to start him off on college and have him work his way up to the Sunday Night Football ranks. And even if, like they said, Collinsworth isn't necessarily leaving per se, they could have them both do games, which obviously would allow them to pick and choose who they want to have do certain games and all that fun stuff, which isn't a bad idea. just because, again, we don't really know. Not everybody's going to be Tony Romo. I think that's the thing we should all learn from this, is that searching for the next Tony Romo sounds like a good idea until you have a bunch of guys that aren't that good at the job. It's like, I mean, searching for, not to say Tony Romo's like the greatest commentator ever or whatever, but he's very good very quickly, and that's not going to be the case for everybody. Some people transition smoothly, some people it takes time. I know, like, with inside the NBA team, like, I know Shaq, Chuck, those guys weren't exactly, I mean, even still now, they're you don't necessarily go into them for the expert analysis, but they still give quality analysis, and obviously they played in the league, were great players. So they know more about basketball than 99% of the people in this country. Probably even more than that. But I know they weren't necessarily great when they first started, so you can't just not everybody's a natural with that, so you can't just hope to have this guy step in right away and be like, hey, yeah, no, we're going to have him on the big time. You have to work your way up to that, and that's obviously what Romo was able to do. I don't think he was calling the number one CBS game in the beginning, but then obviously once they liked him and saw he was good at the job, then he was able to continue to do that. So that was important for him to be able to get that experience and be able to work towards that. And hopefully they will allow Drew Brees that same luxury and not just throw him right into the water and hope he swims. Because not everybody is built like that. I mean, obviously some people learn to swim just by being thrown and just naturally doing whatever they could not to drown. Some people that work. Some people have to be taught. That's not everybody's the same way. So, like I said, we'll see what happens with Brees, but I guess this is interesting because, again, it's ESPN missing out on another guy. Now, maybe they have a plan. Like I said, they have a lot of talent over there at ESPN, so it's not like that big of a deal that they missed out on Drew Brees. Because, again, they need somebody, potentially, for ESPN for Monday Night Football this season. So, and obviously he would be of no help with that this year because he's still playing, as I mentioned multiple times already. Don't need to keep mentioning that. But yeah, so they probably looking for a more immediate answer, and I think that was probably the reason why they had to pass on Drew Brees, because NBC still has a plan in place, and they have people in place currently that they like. So there's no reason for you to just uproot them right now, as opposed to ESPN's maybe looking for a replacement for Tessitore and Bergen McFarland. Now, like I said, they have a lot of guys on their own roster, whether it's Bruce Riddick, Dan Orlovsky, Kurt Warner, Brian Greasy. No, like I said, Steve Levy could step in. They talk about Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler stepping in. Like, they have a lot of options, so they're not short of things. Pat McAfee potentially, like they have the options, just like deciding who they want to go with. But it's interesting that they've tried guys, they've had guys turn them down, they have guys stay with their own company, have guys go to a different company. It's just interesting that you would think the worldwide leader in sports, the one day a week where there's no other football but with the Monday night game, you would think that'd be a prime opportunity for some of these guys, but hey, they haven't found anybody yet. And like I said, maybe they have a plan, maybe it'll all work out in the end, but obviously the process has not gone the exact way that they would have wanted to. Kurt Warner being another guy, maybe try to steal Nate Burris, and I know he's pretty good at his job as well. I'll see some other guys off NFL, or girls, if NFL Network don't want to, so there's more than enough women in talking about football that could do that job, I think, pretty well. Obviously, I know a lot of color guys that like to be former players, but just because you play doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. That is what I've learned. Or just because you played doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. And also just because you watched the game for them doesn't mean you know what you're talking about either. A lot of people don't know what they're talking about, but have a platform. So you can't listen to everybody. But yeah, so a woman could step into that job as well too. I don't want to, like I said, I think it's Amazon Prime. I know they have Hannah Storm and is it Andrea Kramer? I think it was with her. I don't know. I don't usually watch on Amazon Prime because I have cable, so don't need to. But maybe I'll try that out this year, see what the Amazon Prime broadcast looks like, just because I have Amazon Prime. I never utilize it for anything but deliveries, but I know obviously they have some good shows and movies you can watch on there and stuff, so maybe I'll try that out. We'll give it a try for the Thursday night games once this year, see what it's like. But yeah, so ESPN's still searching, and Drew Brees set himself up nicely, post retirement. And I mean, hey, you always got to have a plan, always got to be thinking for the future. And it's nice for Drew Brees to do that while he still has something in the present. Because you don't want to think about it before it's too late. And that was, obviously, Drew Brees didn't want to be one of those people. And more power to him. We will see how it turns out. But, again, I'm not mad at it. I think it'll be cool. Like I said, I think he should be decent as long as he can get the timing down and he finds himself a nice partner, because that's the duo has to work well together in order for it to work. Obviously, just because both the people know what they're talking about does not mean they work well as a team. So, you got to find that person with the right chemistry, the right ability to, you got to play off them nicely, all that stuff. So, to make sure it works the best, because again, I don't think NBC is trying to lower the value of their product in terms of their football broadcast. So, I think Drew is coming in to at least maintain it, if not elevate it. So, we'll see if he's able to do that again once his playing career is over. And speaking of playing careers being over, Deion had a nice little joke with a new Falcons player about the number he was going to use. Though, obviously, like I said, it was just a joke. But at the time, it was kind of funny. But it kind of got me thinking of the fact that Deion's number isn't already retired, and just the concept behind retired numbers in sports. At all levels, college, pro, whatever. Just the concept behind it. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Is it outdated? Should we do away with it? I'll tell you all my opinions on it right after this break, so stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fixed? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, maybe you might have missed this. I mean, it's not that big of a story. We weren't paying attention. Todd Gurley will be wearing number 21 on the Atlanta Falcons this upcoming season. Again, assuming we have a season. Kind of got to throw that in there every now and again just to remind people it's possible. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it is possible. And obviously, there's another famous... not another, but there's a player who made the number 21 famous with the Falcons, that being Deion Primetime Sanders. And he said he was going to wear it, even though Deion said he couldn't. He said he was hating. He told me he couldn't wear it, but then obviously... and also he kind of said that if I were him, I wouldn't want anybody wearing my number either, so I was like, kind of funny. But he was like, I'm still going to do it. And then obviously Prime tweeted out that he was joking with Gurley, because seeing as Desmond Trufant wore, I forgot that, yeah, Desmond Trufant has worn the number 21 for the past 7 years, but it was released by Atlanta this offseason. And that kind of, so that was the big thing, was that, not even, I completely forgot about the Trufant thing, but just also kind of coming off that, the fact that his number isn't retired with the Falcons is kind of interesting. Obviously, he had more success, at least Super Bowl wise, when he left and went to the Cowboys, and he was on the Niners too, right? Yeah, I think he was on the Niners. He had more overall success in those locations than he did, obviously, with the than he did playing with the Falcons in terms of team success. But it kind of got me thinking about the concept of retired numbers. Now, because as we know, that's a good way to signify, like, oh, this person played very well for our team. We're going to commemorate that by retiring his number. Cool. And in theory and in practice, it makes a lot of sense. You're just like, all right, there are very few, if any, people that will be able to live up to the standard that this specific player brought to this number. Like, or just like, this person was so good with us, there's no reason why anyone else should wear that number. Cool. I get it. But at the same time, I feel like especially in football, because there are such restrictions on what numbers people can wear, it's like depending on like what position you play and all that stuff. Yeah, it was San Francisco for a year. Okay, I knew that. I didn't think it was that long, but it was for that year. Go back to Deion real quick. You know, 6 picks that year too. Didn't they win the Super Bowl? Didn't they win the Super Bowl? Or am I bugging? I mean, you know I gotta check. They did win the Super Bowl that year. They smoked San Diego. Hate to see it. Oh, well, he won 3 in a row. Shout out. No, he won 2 in a row. I'm bugging. He lost to the Panthers. Yeah, quick sidebar. But yeah, so like I said, especially in football, where you're just not where you're certain positions are like stuck with certain numbers, it's harder to retire by his number in basketball or like baseball or whatever. It's like, all right, well, I still think it's not necessary. I do get it because it's like, all right, you can wear whatever number you want. You don't have to wear this number, kind of thing. And I think if it's like an overall play, like a Jordan, or no one wearing 23 anymore after LeBron's done, that kind of thing, all right, cool, makes sense. If you have a guy like, you don't want anybody wearing number 2 after Derek Jeter, all right, that's cool, that makes sense. Obviously, the Yankees are famous for retiring people's numbers and stuff. They have a lot of them retired, though still it's not as big of a deal, like I said, in baseball and basketball, because you have more numbers to choose from. But in football, I think it's more cool if you do like the LSU style of where you give that number to the person, or just not necessarily to the person at that position, but a person on your team that you think can hold up to the standard of that number. So like, say like with the Patriots, obviously I believe they'll retire Tom Brady's number 12. But if you had a quarterback, or I guess a receiver technically, that you thought after a couple years, or you thought you brought him and you drafted him number 1, like if they drafted Trevor Lawrence, and you think he can live up to that. Obviously, it's just a number. You don't have to live up to the number. You have to live up to Tom Brady regardless. Just if you're whoever the next Patriots quarterback is going to be, he's going to have to live up to Tom Brady. It doesn't matter if you have the number or not. But if you believe that he is of that caliber, then all right, allow him to wear that number. And obviously, if it works out, it works out. It doesn't. But I don't think the retirement of the number is necessary, though I do think that they will end up doing so. So I'm saying the same thing could be this. If you, I don't know if Tyler Gurley will, necessarily because of the whole knee situation, but if you had a player that you thought, all right, I think he can have a similar impact to what Prime had during his time here, I have no issue with you giving away that number. Again, like I said, LSU does it with, I think it's the number 7, where they give it to, I know definitely on defense, where they give it to like the next big thing, or the next big guy. So like, I know like Grant Delpit has had the past couple of years. I'm pretty sure Patrick Peterson had it in college. Tyrann Mathieu, I believe, had it while he was there at LSU. Let me just double check that for you guys. I think Leonard Fournette wore it on offense, because else you can do offense and defense in college. Yeah, he wore number 7 in college at LSU. Like I said, I think Honey Badger wore it. Yeah, he wore number 7. It's like I'm saying, they give the number 7 to the next big guy on defense, which is why Delpit had. I think he started as like a freshman. In theory, you could give it to Stingley next year, though. Maybe he'll want to change numbers, maybe he won't. I don't know. But I like that concept of it, just like as a tradition to pass down to the next generation of future great at X school. Like, I think that's a cool thing. Or that would be a cool thing. I was thinking that the rules are a little bit different. A lot of teams don't even have names on the back of their jerseys, I should say, so it doesn't really matter. There's not anybody, obviously the fans of your program know, but there's no one, like, how would we be able to attach it to a specific player, because, again, no name on the back, obviously, with like, jerseys and professionals, there's a person's name attached to it, so you know exactly who's the one that was wearing it, so a little bit harder. But I kind of think the idea of retired numbers, it could be, I don't want to say it is, but could be a little antiquated. And I know that's kind of going to be weird to say because numbers have been getting retired for forever. This isn't like a new concept, but I feel like it's a concept that is not as necessary anymore, per se. This is, again, use it as a tradition or a passing of the guard, if you will. Like, if you have a guy who, I'm trying to think, who else is good? Who else had a great career and run in one number with the team? I'm trying to think. Like if after Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers probably gets number retired, but like say Drew Brees. We were just talking about Drew Brees. In theory, the Saints could retire the number 9, and no one would bat an eye at it. Or if they draft their successor at quarterback in the next couple of years, why not just have him wear number 9? If you think, he doesn't have to, but I'm saying just leave it as an option for a guy down the line to be like, all right, we think he could do what Drew Brees did for this franchise. Sorry, then, just add another incentive, another thing for the person to strive for, because obviously when you have that number, you want to live up to the legacy of that number. You don't want to, you want to be the one to be like, you ruined the number kind of thing. You don't want to be that person, so it gives more incentive and something to look up to. Now, so you can't just give it to anybody. You got to pick and choose wisely due to the fact that, like I said, some people, not everybody's built for that spotlight, built for that prime time. So you need to be able to suss that out before you just give away the number. And then, obviously, most guys don't change numbers during their career, but in the pre-draft process leading up to it, you'd have that idea of like, all right, I think this guy could be the guy. If you think so, all right, let him wear the number, kind of thing. I think that'd be a cool way to do it. At least in, like I said, at least in football, because there's only so many numbers you can have. You can't just be retiring everybody's number. It doesn't work. You're just going to run out of numbers, and now everybody's going to be wearing like 14. All the quarterbacks are going to be wearing like 14, which is like a weird number. No offense, Doug Peterson. But yeah, it's just like a weird number. Like a lot of people are going to be wearing like 8. Shout out Steve Young, but like 8's kind of like a weird number to me. People are going to be wearing like 3 or 4. Again, shout out Brett Favre. But again, those like weird numbers to me. People wearing like 17. Nah. Doesn't really do it. 18. Peyton Manning, shout out to him, but like 18 is kind of like a weird number. Just a C, like on a jersey, is like a weird. It's like a. What I'm saying, but if you just go about retiring everybody's numbers, then you run out of numbers eventually. Because what's stopping you from retiring most numbers? Like honestly, you could. Not everybody does, but you could argue most sports teams have at least had one good player or great player for their franchise in about 10 to 12 different numbers. If they've been around long enough. You could argue that. And I'm saying with that, then now you're just cutting your numbers down from, I guess, technically 99 to, now if you cut it to 12, you're down to 87 numbers, and then that's listed even smaller, because again, if it's at certain positions, you only have certain numbers to choose from, because of the way the rules are with the NFL. So, then in that list of numbers even smaller, I just think it'd be cooler if you did it as a tradition thing, as opposed to because people, you can still put them in put them in putting them in a team's like Hall of Fame, or like give them like a bus or something. That doesn't take away. You can do that without retiring their number. You're putting them in your Ring of Honor or whatever. You can do that without retiring their number, in my opinion. Those two things are separate. You can be in a team's Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor, but not have your number retired. Like, you don't need to have your number retired as well. That's something they do because it's just like a cool ceremony. Like, oh, no one will ever wear this number. I'm saying, like, just because he was great at this number for 15 and 20 years doesn't mean someone else can't also be great at that number for 15 and 20 years. Like, I don't see why that's not a possibility, at least. But like I said, it's a common practice in sports. People just retire numbers for anybody that's great, which, again, I get. But I think it would just be cooler if you use it as a tradition thing, like LSU does. I just think that's a cool concept of the way they utilize their numbers and utilize their great players as a measuring stick. It's like, all right, if you want to be, you think you're great, all right, measure yourself up against Patrick Peterson, measure yourself up against Honey Badger. Grant Delpit, whoever comes after that, Leonard Fournette on offense, like stuff like that. Measure yourself up against those guys and see if you, and then again, give you something extra motivation, that's something to strive for. Hey, excuse me. Like I said, this is mainly just a football thing because you can have more numbers. But even then, like all the best players wear the good number. Like 23 is a good number outside of like the Jordan LeBron. It's still a good number. Like no one wants to wear like 37. No offense, but no one wants to wear 37. People want to wear 8, 10, 5, 25, 1. Like those are like cool numbers. And now you're just saying like, nah, you can't wear them. It's like, all right, I get it, but at the same time, it's just like, oh, you're taking away all the cool numbers. Like how many cool like 56s do you know in the NBA? None, I think. I could be wrong, but there aren't like a lot of 56s in the NBA. Those are going to be the numbers people are going to have to wear if they retire 20 numbers for a team. Like, look at the Lakers. They have all those numbers retired. Which, again, I understand it, but it's like you're going to run out of good numbers to use. Because everyone can't wear the same jersey numbers. But, hey, like I said, it's not that big of a deal. But it would just be cooler, in my opinion, if teams did it like they pass it as a tradition. Like, you pass it down. Like, all right, this goes from this person to that person to that person to that person. And all the way go through the history. So, like, instead of having one great number 20 or number 15, you have a long line of number 15s that are exceptional. I think that'd be cool. But again, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. It's just an opinion off the top of my head. But I think it'd be cool. Let me know if you agree. But I think it'd be pretty cool if sports teams did it like that as opposed to, like I said, with the retirement of the numbers. But yeah, so coming up after this, I don't know if you guys saw. I know I didn't really watch it, but I saw people tweeting about it and read about it a little bit. Again, you guys are hearing this on Monday, but on Sunday, Tiger Woods rewatched the Masters with Jim Nance. Cool moment for him, obviously, kind of the final comeback in his whole comeback from the whole cheating, wife breaking his car window, divorce, golf club scandal thing. This was kind of like, all right, like he's back, but he wasn't officially back then when the major. Now he's won a major. Now he's officially back. But yeah, so then in thinking of that, and obviously I've seen some things where some other people have done this, and I know some boxing. I think DAZN's doing this too, where they're having like people rewatch old fights and stuff, just because again, people need stuff to watch. I was thought about what would be some cool games I want to have players or coaches or people rewatching and kind of talk through what was going on in their minds and what they were seeing out there as the game was unfolding. So I have my little list. Obviously, you guys may agree, may want to see other things, but we'll talk about all of that right after this break. Stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
We are back. We're once again on GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, obviously, there has been a lot of great games, great moments, great performances throughout, obviously, all-time history. But I was focusing more on the last 10 or so years, just because a lot of the older teams have had time to discuss these games or these performances or these teams. So, I'm trying to think of some new ones that people haven't talked about too much. I mean, obviously, again, a lot of these are playoffs or championship performances, so there has been some discussion on them. But just like I said, just some thoughts I had. So, one of the first ones that I thought of was Madison Bumgarner in his Game 7 performance in the 2014 World Series. Just because I think what he threw, it's ranked as one of the all-time World Series performances. I mean, obviously after the World Series. I mean, in October he had 7 games, 6 complete games started, went 4-1, had a save, 1.03 ERA, 0.65 WHIP, 6 walks, 45 strikeouts in 52 and 2/3 innings. And at the time, he was only 25 years old. He won the NLCS MVP, the World Series MVP, and his 3rd ring, the last of that little Giants dynasty. But yes, I'm trying to think. I think Bleacher Report, I'm trying to see where they ranked it. Bleacher Report had it as the 5th best World Series performance of all time, behind David Freese in Game 6, obviously. We'll see you tomorrow night. Shout out Joe Buck. Or should I say, we'll see you tomorrow night. I don't really sound like Joe Buck, but you guys got the point. So behind Jack Morris in 91, who threw 10 innings, wow, to get the win. Don Larson in 56 in Game 5. I think that was a no-hitter, so it makes sense. Can't really beat that. And then Sidney Koufax in 65 World Series Game 7, 9 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 10 Ks. And then another added bonus to it was Bumgarner did this, pitched 5 innings, he had 2 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts to save, won the World Series against Game 7 on 2 days rest, which is very much unheard of at the time. Just because, obviously you see it more. I don't say you see this more, because I think Charlie Morton did it for the Astros in their World Series win over the Dodgers. He pitched a while. I don't know if it was this many innings, but he pitched a while. I know Patrick Corbin came in and threw 3 innings of relief for the Nationals this year after Scherzer in their decisive Game 7. So, again, it's becoming more and more common, I think. Kind of Bumgarner is one of the few guys that tried to make it common. I know Kershaw's tried to do it, Scherzer tried to do it, other guys have tried to do it unsuccessfully. In not like you always World Series games, but some other games throughout the playoffs. You see this a lot more. It happened a lot more. But yeah, it was, I guess, like I said, he threw 5 innings, got the save, 2 hits, and I would just like to see, talking about what he was thinking. How did he have anything left? What did he think when when Alex Gordon hit the ball to the outfield and got past the outfielder and rolled all the way to the fence and potentially could have tied the game if they sent him home? Obviously, I think he still would have got thrown out because he's not that fast. But there was a chance. You never know. You got to make a good relay throw. If it throws a little off, but suppose he misses the ball, something could have happened. And if they had tied it up, would he have had enough to go to another inning? But it's just kind of what he was thinking. As he came in, as he's going through each inning, trying to make sure he doesn't give up any runs, try to preserve the lead. Those are the kind of things you wanted. It'd be cool to talk through it. And obviously, like I said, in baseball, it's harder for a hitter to be up there because you're only up there for 3 at bats and how many ever plays in the outfield, 3 or 4 at bats, how many ever plays in the field you have, as opposed to the pitchers involved. Every pitch, thinking all right, this is what I'm trying to do to him here, this is what I'm trying to do to him there. I think it'd be kind of cool. And actually, this is an all-time performance, so that'd be kind of fun. I also thought the Deshaun Watson national championship game against Alabama, obviously. I think that was the second one that they won, the Natty, on the last second pass. Now that would be a cool one to relive, in my personal opinion, because in that game, actually they beat the 14-0 Alabama team at the time. It was, like I said, it was a rematch. It was a great sequel. He threw for 420 yards, 3 touchdowns. Scored the game-winning touchdown with 1 second left on the clock. He ran for a touchdown too when he had 20 carries. Wow, that's a lot of carries. He had 20 carries. Obviously, that Alabama team, I think Jalen Hurts was a freshman. He would have been a freshman at that time, right? Yeah, he would have been a freshman at that time. Obviously, I'm trying to see who was on the Alabama defense. You got Reuben Foster, you got Ronnie Harrison, Ryan Anderson, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Minka Fitzpatrick, Marlon Humphrey. Like, you got a lot of guys that are playing in the NFL right now. And those are just the guys I named off the top of my head. Not off the top of my head, but just like, I didn't even name everybody. You got Reggie Evans, who's on the Titans, or Rashawn Evans, I should say, who's on the Titans right now. Like, you have a lot of guys on the Alabama defense that are, if not on an NFL roster, or starting on an NFL roster. So, like I said, it's not exactly Dalvin Tomlinson. Forgot about him. So, yeah, not an easy task. Anthony Jennings was a freshman at that time. And he's going to get drafted at some point. Don't know exactly where. But we'll get drafted at some point this year. So, yeah, that'd be a cool one. Just to, like I said, it was a rematch. What we were kind of thinking going in. I know we started off the game. I thought he had a pick. Oh, no. Did he not? Oh, okay. So I'm thinking of the game before that. I think he was going through a pick. But yeah, he had a great game. He had a fumble. He lost a fumble. Gallman lost a fumble. Is kind of what you're thinking through. Like, how are you trying to make... What are you thinking on that last drive as you're driving down there? What are you thinking the play before? I mean, obviously, people talk to him about this, but no one sat down and rewatched the whole game with him, and I think that'd be a cool thing to do. So, yes, another game I'd be interested in seeing rewatched with the guy. I had Dabo Sweeney in there, too, for a little extra spice. Because, you know, Dabo's always he's always a good quote, so he would say something interesting about the game and Deshaun's performance. I mean, he called him the MJ of college football, so... Again, he's had a lot of support for Deshaun, so I think that'd be cool. Also, another one I wanted to relive would be I know, there's a lot of LeBron games you can go through. Everyone's going to want to do a Game 7 against the Warriors. Everyone's going to want to do Game 6 against the Spurs, maybe Game 7 against the Spurs that they won. But the first want to do, from his first championship season, the 2012 Game 6 in Boston, where I did there's that meme of him just like with the demon look in his eyes. In this game, he had, because again they were down 3-2. They're in Boston. If they lose this game, not only does the Boston, they're not even get over the Boston hump, but like you would argue, I mean, if they didn't win that, even if they didn't win the finals that year or the year after, you could argue that they might have broken the team up. I mean, obviously they had their struggles before. They lost in the finals before. If they didn't even get back to the finals, then now you're trying to trade Chris Bosh. Like, what are you doing with Wade? Obviously, I mean, he was still playing well, but you're not trading LeBron. It's like, dude, did Spoelstra get fired? That could have been it could have been a whole mess if they didn't win. It could have been a whole mess. But in that game, he played for almost 45 minutes. Shot 9 of 26. That's whopping 73% from the field. Only shot 4 threes, hit 2 of them, because of course. Had 45 points, 5 assists, 15 rebounds, no steals or blocks, whatever. But again, 45 points. The next highest scoring guy on the Heat was D Wade with 17. Obviously, this is 2012, so they only scored 89 points. It's not a common thing in today's NBA playoffs. But again, that was the game where you really like, oh, okay, they're going to the finals. Like, there was no doubt in my mind they were going to win Game 7. If LeBron was going to do that in Game 6, he's going to show up in Game 7, in my personal opinion. That was Boston's shot, and obviously they didn't seize it, mainly because LeBron decided he wasn't going to miss, which, I mean, if you decide that, hey, look, once the Grizzlies decide they're not going to miss, there's nothing really you can do. I'm sorry. You've seen it with all the elite talented players. They just have games where they're just like, I'm going to hit every shot. There's literally nothing you can do about it, which we'll get to one of those games in a second. But yeah, it's just like when you're in that zone, there's not really much anybody can do with you. And obviously Boston had nothing that they could throw at LeBron that was going to try to change anything. And then obviously they were able to win that series and win the finals, and then kind of his career has continued to go up from there. Obviously, like I said, if they lose that game, his whole legacy is shot. People are calling him a loser. Like, everything that the whole not 5, not 6, not 7 thing already looks crazy now because they only won 2. Imagine if they didn't even win those 2. How much ridicule he would get from that. Yeah, it was big. That was a big moment in LeBron's career. So I'd love to go through that. I mean, he's kind of talked about it a little bit. I'd love to rewatch that game with him, talk about what he was thinking. Like, did he know he was going to do this? Like, at what point did he know? Like, just stuff like that. That'd be cool. Maybe add D Wade in there maybe D Wade and Bosh just for fun. Bring the gang back together. Another game I'd want to watch would be have if they decided to, because again, there's no way that they both agree to this. I know maybe Shanahan won't, but have Shanahan and Bill Belichick rewatch like the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. Obviously, even just if I can only get Bill, that's more than enough for me. Because I would just love to know what he was thinking as the team was down 28-3. I know we've heard from the players a little bit, talk about like they believe and all that stuff. And obviously, as a coach, you want to say that you have faith in your team. But at the same time, you're in a Super Bowl, you know the Falcons are good, and you're down 28-3. Now, the chances are very slim for a comeback. Very, very slim. Obviously, they did end up coming back, but I would like to think what his mindset was and what his mindset was like after, or what he was thinking after they score, after like the Hightower sack fumble, after Julio makes that catch, after Julian Edelman makes his catch, after they go to the overtime and win the toss. Like, just be interesting to see his mindset. And obviously, the reverse of that is like, what were the Falcons thinking on their side? That would just be cool, because again, these are two of the best minds on their respective sides of the ball in the NFL. Just to get them in the room and talking about a game that they both experienced. Obviously, one was on a more successful side than the other of it, clearly. But I think that'd be cool to just hear them kind of talk about it. Again, Shanahan might not, but even Bill might not. So, I mean, obviously players, I mean, you could get Brady, you could get Edelman, you could get whoever to talk about it. And honestly, you could scrap that one and put Falcons. I mean, you could put not Falcons, Seahawks, Patriots. You could put Eagles, Patriots. I mean, anything but Patriots, Rams. That game was terrible. But any of the recent Super Bowls in the last 5 to 10 years, you could put on there, and I think that you could get interesting commentary about that game. So, you could throw in whatever Patriots recent Super Bowl game you want from that. If you don't think Bill and Shanahan would talk, and then but the last game I would want to hear about is the origin of Game 6 Clay, which is Game 6 of the 2016, I believe. Yeah, 2016 Western Conference Finals. Klay Thompson decided that he was going to put a dagger through the hearts of all OKC fans out there and basically all but end KD's time in OKC. Obviously, they had the Game 7, but it didn't really matter. They got close a little bit towards the end, but I thought they even tied. I think they might have gotten within like 4 or 2 or something. There's not much you could do. But yes, as we all know, Klay set the record for most threes made in a playoff game, where he decided he was going to be unconscious. Shot 11 of 18, which is a 61% for the people counting at home, for a whopping 41 points. Again, 33 of them on threes. Only shot 14 and 31 for the game, but hey, once he got to the 3-point line, he was golden. Shot 3 of 13 on every other shot. We got him to and then made 2 free throws. But get him to the 3-point line, cash every time. So yeah, and obviously, I mean, Klay's kind of like a weird, funny guy. Like he's not like a jokester or like a comedian kind of guy, but it's like the way he says things, the way he like conducts himself is just like kind of funny. So I think it'd be cool to just have him talk through that game. I mean, obviously, add in like a Draymond or Iggy or Steph or Steve Kerr or somebody for a little bit more flavor. But I want to hear what Klay has to say. And like, God, when a shooter gets like that, obviously there are. Just like when a great player gets like that, like there's nothing you can do. But I would love to know, like, at what point in that game did he realize, like, oh, this might be one of these games if I can keep getting the ball. And like, at what point did he realize, like, oh, we're going to come back? Because I think there was a point in the game, I don't know when it was, if it's third quarter, fourth quarter, whenever, we were just like, oh, we're going to come back and win this game. And it probably was going to be well before they actually took the lead on I'm pretty sure they took the lead on a Klay 3 after like a. Oh, was it just... I don't remember if it was a regular steal or if it was like a strip of Russ or something. It was like down the stretch, him and KD just took turns turning the ball over and missing shots. It was a disaster to watch. Iggy shot both of them down pretty much. It was crazy. But yeah, I'd love to hear what was going through his mind. Obviously, what was going through the mind of the team at that time. Just because the whole 73-win season was flashing before their eyes. Obviously, it didn't end up working out their way in the finals, but they could have not even gotten to the finals, which would have been an even bigger disappointment in my opinion. Then maybe KD doesn't come, though he says he was coming. You don't really know. So maybe he doesn't join the Warriors now. They still got Harrison Barnes. Like the whole dynamic of the team is a little bit different. The way they're remembered is a little bit different. So yeah, it would have just been interesting to see. And like I said, that's still one of the greatest performances on any stage I've ever seen, personally. I mean, I remember watching that game, and I forget, I was in a bar somewhere in North Jersey, and just like another shock every time he made a deep three. It was just like every time, it just felt like every time he shot the ball it was going in. At least, like I said, from three. From two, different story, but from three, it seemed like every time he put the ball in the air it was going in, and his over 60% 3-point percentage for the game will show that. But yeah, it was nuts. Like I said, there's so many other games and performances you can add on. These are just like 5 I thought would be cool to have guys talk through. Like I said, there's many other things. UFC fights, boxing fights, other games, other moments in recent history, old history of sports that you would like to hear guys talk through. But like I said, this is just my list, and you are more than welcome to send me your list after you listen to the podcast. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys for listening. As I try to do every episode, give a shout out once again to the essential workers, nurses, doctors, grocery store people, any other jobs where you are forced to possibly risk your own life to make it so that people like me can still get food or get treatment or whatever for this coronavirus. You are greatly appreciated. Even if you don't hear it on the day-to-day, you will hear it from me. So just listen to the podcast if you want to hear some praise. But yeah, so like I said, shout out to those guys. Like I said, I want to thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could please as well give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. We'd be very appreciated. It's very helpful. Allow us to see what you guys like, dislike, ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. If you're on social media, we are there as well, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. You can send me your list of 5 games that you'd love for people to rewatch and talk through. You can tell me your opinion on retired numbers. You can tell me why the XFL was always destined to fail no matter what they did. You can tell me why you think the Gobert and Mitchell beef was overblown and it's not really even a big deal. I am welcome to all sorts of discussions. But yeah, that'll do it for me here today. I want to thank you guys again for your time. I've been Chris Blades, and until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.